The Rewind Sports 60.
Madam Mayor Lori Lightfoot on our TR60 hotline right here at WCPT 820 AM, The Rewind Sports 60. Mayor Lightfoot, how are you?
Well, I was listening with great interest to your conversation about The Last Dance.
Well, you know what? First of all, thank you so very much for taking some time out on this, I have to say, a busy Sunday, because it seems as if you're always busy regarding this pandemic. We appreciate you taking time out to join us on the fastest hour in sports conversation here in the great city of Chicago, the Rewind Sports 60. But yeah, we're looking forward to this Last Dance, Mayor. I'm sure you had an opportunity to take some time last week to check it out. I don't know if you watched it live for the 2 hours. But what are your thoughts from what you've been able to see?
Well, it was painful to watch, right? Because the notion that you would take an iconic, maybe once-in-a-generation player and break up a team with that level of talent, and you got that kind of a player after spending time building and putting the elements around him, it didn't make any sense to me then. And it doesn't make any sense to me with the benefit of hindsight. It was just ego over good business sense, ego over good sports management. It didn't make any sense.
No, it certainly didn't make any sense. And one reason it didn't make any sense to me, and I'm sure millions of people, not only Chicagoans, but around the country and around the world, is the fact that by this time, I mean, these guys have won, 5 championships, right? So by this time, you clearly, even if you're a novice sports fan, a novice basketball fan, you clearly knew, unless you had your head, buried in the sand or something, you knew that Michael Jordan was definitely the best there ever was at this particular time. And as Michael said, you ride this thing until the wheels fall off. He said, we worked our tails off to get to this point. We'd earned this. Give us an opportunity to lose it. And you're right. It was painful, and it was disappointing that Jerry Krause couldn't put his ego aside to reload and continue to come back. Do you think that team, had it stayed intact, it stayed in place, could have possibly run off, another 2 championships?
I mean, you don't know, right? Weird things happen in sports, injuries happen, but why take the chance and not allow that great chemistry? They were the ultimate team. Why not allow that team to finish its run and not artificially pull the plug? Look, I lived in Chicago when Michael came, and the teams around him were very mediocre, and then they couldn't get past the bad boys in Detroit. I actually lived in Detroit for a year, that last year that Detroit had its run, and that was painful to watch. But then when you see this ascendancy, why would you stop that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
None whatsoever. And so we got to ask the $1 million question, because since that time, we've had some blips on the radar, so to speak, as far as some draft picks are concerned. We got Jay Williams out of Duke, and he had an unfortunate, tragic accident. Thank goodness. It was life-threatening. Right. But he was projected to turn that thing around. And hence, it was Jerry Krause, because you remember when Michael Jordan left, his locker at the United Center, it was vacant. No one wanted to even touch that locker.
Right.
Jerry Krause told Jay Williams, hey, that's your locker over there. And everyone's, hey, wait, that's the king. That's Michael Jordan's. And Jerry's like, he's no longer here. Hey, that's yours. And we see what happened with Jay Williams. Then, of course, we fast forward, we get our own Chicago product in Derrick Rose. And we think that he's the savior.
Yes.
And a blessing. And then what happens? He has the torn ACL. Do you think, because of what Jerry Krause did, because a lot of people speculate that this team has a curse on it because of that move, breaking up the dynasty team?
Well, I don't think it has a curse, but I think that they've made a lot of questionable decisions. I mean, look, if you look back through NBA history, right, it's a very unusual thing to be able to build a team around a point guard or a shooting guard. It's usually a center, power forward, and then the rest of the pieces. Michael was obviously unique, as he wasn't really a point guard, but a small forward, I would say. Magic obviously was just, again, one of those once-in-a-generation kind of players. But the great teams were not built around 6'1", 6'2", 1 or 2 guards. And so what you're talking about is, they're drafting a Jay Williams. We'll never know what came of that because he had an unfortunate motorcycle accident. I mean, Derrick Rose is obviously an incredible talent, but even there, they didn't get better until the other pieces were around him. He couldn't consistently take over a game by himself and score 30, 40 points. And really, you don't want that. You want to be able to get other people involved, get everybody touches, have everybody down to the 6th, 7th man contributing to the flow, because otherwise you're going to burn out with a long NBA season. I just think that they haven't had the luck of the right draft picks at the right time to really build the team. And I think the thing that is really the problem, it's not a curse, is, you hear gossip from, NBA players that they don't believe in the organization and therefore we're very reluctant to come. Now, we're turning the page with a new general manager. Mm-hmm. I'm anxious to see him build out his team. I like the Reinsdorf personally very much, and I hope that this is really the start of a new beginning. But the proof is in the pudding. They're going to have to put the team on the floor, bring back the crowds, and demonstrate once again that Chicago is a force to be reckoned with, and that remains to be seen.
It certainly does. We're on with the great mayor of our city of Chicago, the great city, Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60 WCPT 820 AM.
Mayor Lightfoot, this is Lauren Cox here. I have so many sports questions that I wanted to ask you, and I saw that tweet that you tweeted last week. You had a super cool Bulls hat on, and I think you said, "Don't at me for 54 minutes, hashtag Last Dance." So that was so funny. I'm like, I've got to hear what her first impressions were. But again, we know that you are a huge sports fan, and you've been in Chicago for many, many years, a Chicago Bears season ticket holder for 20 years, Chicago White Sox ticket holder, and WNBA Chicago Sky season ticket holder as well. So I have to ask you, what are your thoughts on the moves that the Bears made during the offseason and the draft as well?
Well, I think that they definitely upgraded at linebacker, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, but the guy that they got from Dallas, that seems like a significant upgrade. Nick Foles is very interesting, right? I mean, he's had such iconic moments, but then he's not been consistent. Mm-hmm. So I think bringing in some competition for Trubisky is the right thing. Is Nick Foles the answer? We're going to see once they get out on the field and start putting it together on the offense. But the inconsistency of Trubisky over these last few years, it's just, even in the year that we had a great run, what you saw, I think, last year was the inconsistent offense wasn't producing. I thought the play calling was very pedestrian. And then you saw the defense every game getting gassed because they were out on the field too long. That's still a really solid defense. A lot of really great players. Now, I think they've got to pick it up, and I'm interested to see some of the draft picks on the defensive end. But I felt like way too often we just got outcoached. And for me, again, it really starts with the offense. And, let's mix it up. Let's not be predictable and try to run up the gut against teams where they've got that lockdown. But really, we need much more consistent play at the quarterback.
You know what? You make a very valid point. A lot of people were beside themselves. We talked about it all season long right here on the Rewind Sports 60 that Matt Nagy and his play calling was very, very suspect. But do you think it was partly due with the fact that Mitchell Trubisky isn't his quarterback? That's Ryan Pace's quarterback draft, and we know the history behind that. And it seemed as if Matt Nagy was put into a position to try to bring the best out of this kid as much as he possibly could, despite the fact that he wasn't designed to run Matt Nagy's offense. Did you feel or sense any of that watching this debacle that we just witnessed this past season?
Well, I mean, go back a season prior, right? Mitch Trubisky is never going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I just don't see that in him. But does he have the ability to stay within the offense and manage a game so that the defense then can bear down. And yeah, I think he's got that capability, but the consistency wasn't there. And for me, it really started with the preseason. I don't think this guy who had very few game reps in college, why do you not give him game reps in the preseason? Now, I understand there's a concern always about getting somebody hurt in preseason, but he's a guy that's got to get reps. And I hope they won't make that same mistake this year.
You and me both, Mayor Lightfoot. I have to ask you, I heard that during election night, you didn't want to hear any preliminary poll results. You wanted to wait until the final count. And you had the Duke versus Virginia Tech game on instead of listening to what was going on beforehand. So walk me through that. What was going through your mind that night? And is it true? Did you really have the Duke versus Virginia Tech game on while you're sitting here seeing if you could be and do the impossible and be the next mayor of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I had a crowd in my room when we were waiting for the results to come in, and over time they just kind of filtered out. And we had the game on, and I just stayed watching. You know, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I mean, we at that point were running the campaign on a shoestring. We knew it was going to be tight. We were hoping for a 1 or 2 finish, but really didn't know what the result was going to be. And I'm sitting there watching the game by myself, and all of a sudden I hear this scream. I thought, well, what could that be? And I'm hoping, obviously, that it could be a good thing. Right. I hear a scream, people running, and of course that was distracting, but nobody came in. And I found out later it was the first time that one of the stations had shown the preliminary results, and it showed me in first place. And people just went wild, of course. And then, you know, eventually when I kept hearing more and more and more, I said, all right, I got to find out what's going on. And stuck my head out of the room, like, what's up?
Right.
And then I started finding out that we were getting very good news. But yes, I did watch the Duke Virginia Commonwealth game, and I started watching a second game that night, which I think was a Big Ten game, which I can't remember now which one it was, but sports is always a nice distraction for me.
You know what? It's interesting you mentioned the Big Ten, and I love you. I think you're doing a heck of a job. There's no question about it. I'm sure not you and none of us anticipated what we're going through right now with this pandemic. Yeah. I mean, we knew that there are issues here in Chicago, and we knew that we needed a new voice and a change of pace, and that you were going to bring that. But none of us anticipated what we're actually going through and experiencing. And I give credit, I'm sure Lauren and everyone here at WCPT give you credit, and your administration. You know, kudos on how you're handling this thing, because this is unprecedented, uncharted waters that we're in, and there's necessarily not any right answers. It's just, hey, let's see how we get along. But I say that to say I'm impressed, surprised, and happy that you got back on the right track, because you are a product of the Buckeye State, Massillon, Ohio, the home of the great Ohio State Buckeyes. Somehow you got derailed and went up to that school up north, but then you regained your senses and you came here to the greatest city in the world, University of Chicago. How did you get off track for those few years, leaving a great state and coming back to a great state, in the middle going to because as you well know, I'm a product of the Ohio State University, so I don't know how you lost focus and got off the rail. You took the scenic route. Is that what it was?
Well, so listen, I have an older brother who's 12 years older than me. So he started at Ohio State when I started kindergarten. And I remember he was on kind of like the 6 or 7 year plan, but, you know, he's counting. And I spent a huge chunk of my childhood driving down Route 71 to Ohio State. And, you know, my brother was a Q, and that'll resonate with some folks. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And going into his fraternity house was like something out of Animal House. So, you know, subconsciously, I think I probably rebelled against all of that and found my way to Amazing Blue. I bleed blue.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
But I'm. Hey, listen, we don't have much to talk about when it comes to football, right? I was watching the draft over the last couple of days, and Michigan's quarterback didn't even get drafted, so that tells you something.
Well, you know what?
I feel badly for Shane Patterson, but not a total surprise he didn't get drafted.
Well, let me say this to you, and I love my Buckeyes, and I thought we should have played in the national championship. We got robbed when we went up against Clemson, but I understand what the decision makers wanted. But I got to tell you this. Back during the 80s, your school owned the Buckeyes. I remember Jim Harbaugh. He predicted. You know how Michigan weekend is, right? And so the game was in Columbus. This guy, Jim Harbaugh, former Chicago Bear quarterback, he made a prediction that the Wolverines were going to come into the Horseshoe and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. And for an entire week.
And remind me what happened. I
know it had, but for an entire week we were pumped up. We knew that our team wasn't going to let us down. He took a page out of Joe Namath's notebook and said, "Hey, we're coming up there to beat them," and they came in and beat us at the shoe in Columbus. It was unbelievable. So, you guys had a run during the '80s that we just simply couldn't get by you. But now, hey, payback, as they say, Mayor. You know what they say. You know what they say.
And Michigan with Lloyd Carr decided that consistently winning 8 games a year, being very competitive in the Big Ten wasn't quite good enough. And then we went through the debacle of, I'll be polite and call him Rick Rod instead of what I'd normally say, Rich Rodriguez.
Yes.
Then Brady Hoke, who I had a lot of high expectation for. And, it's no secret. Harbaugh has not delivered. He just hasn't delivered.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ex-players that, won his head on the stick. I have no idea what's going to happen this fall. I haven't seen enough of who the recruits are going to be. But, offense, which is supposed to be a specialty, it's just been lacking. That defense is pretty stout. They're pretty solid. Although, again, they gave up the ghost against Ohio State. But if this year isn't a lot better and different, I don't see Harbaugh being a long-timer at Michigan.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah. I don't. Mayor, we know your time is short, and we appreciate you taking some time out to join us. A couple more questions, if you can. You're a big White Sox fan. It's a town that's divided. You got the White Sox on the south side, you got the Cubs on the north side, but you proclaimed yourself as a South Side White Sox fan. How did that come to be?
So here's the honest truth. When I was working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the White Sox used to have half-price Mondays, and you could go and buy a ticket at any price. And at that time, the crowds weren't particularly big, so you could sit anywhere. So we'd go and buy a $15 ticket, $20 ticket, and we'd sit down in the lower bowl, and that's how I became a White Sox fan. The price was right. Mm-hmm. It was a fun time. They were okay back in those days, but I just consistently liked the White Sox because you could get to see the games, and the in-stadium experience was really quite great.
Yeah, I
told Jerry Reinsdorf, bring back Half-Price Monday.
100%, Mayor. And going along with the sports theme, we are all missing sports. And really, really waiting and hoping for things to go back to normal. But for me, it was really interesting and fun to see you guys start a campaign. And I don't know if everybody knows, but it's hang your favorite jersey or gear in your window, from the pros to the youth leagues, to show the city that we're all in this together. And you posted a lot of different pictures of people all across the state and above Chicago who put their favorite jerseys up. Talk to me about how you all are coming up with these unique campaigns that are really close to everyone and just a way to unite the city when we're going through these unprecedented times.
Well, I have to give all credit to our digital and creative team. Look, what we know is that this is a really, really tough time for everybody. It's frustrating to have to be at home for so much of the time. And I know we're all going stir crazy in my house, and I get to go out every day because, I got to run the city. But imagine the frustration of people who aren't essential workers or who can telecommute. It's a challenging experience, and particularly, this time of year when the days are longer, the weather's getting warmer. You want to be out. This is the time where we really embrace Chicago. So we wanted to give people something that they could do and claim and own on a citywide basis across the city. So this is one of many ideas that kind of percolated up through the creative team. You know, we have kind of, you talk about sitcoms where they got a writer's table and they throw around ideas and they put something together. We have a similar thing with our creative and digital teams where we're coming up with a lot of different ideas that really help celebrate Chicago and Chicagoans and give people a distraction from what can seem like long, monotonous days of staying at home.
Hey, Mayor.
And, you know, as you know, this is a great sports town. People love sports, so it's an easy thing for people to connect with.
Yeah, it is, and people are chomping at the bit. We're all eager to get back out there, regardless, you know, whether if it's the White Sox over. I still like to call it Comiskey, but I know it's called what is it? Guaranteed rate or whatever. I still call it Comiskey.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I still call it Comiskey.
Yeah, I mean, it's Comiskey. And, you know, and Cub fans want to get out the Wrigley, and kudos to what you have been doing in collaboration with these teams and trying to help, you know, flatten the curve, as they say. So we're all looking forward, hopefully, to get back. The NBA, I know they're talking about having players get to respected facilities to start working out. Do you see something like that happening as far as our Bulls are concerned?
I think there's a lot of conversation at the league level about what can be done. I know the NBA is thinking about it. I think the hockey is also thinking about it. It would be some truncated end of the season, probably without fans in the arenas. But I think at this point, people are so hungry for content and see their teams play. Now, I don't know what the ultimate rules will be, and as we know, our Bulls weren't headed towards the playoffs when the season ended. But I think people would be grateful to see some professional sports. You know, we were very excited about the Fire opening up at Soldier Field and coming back to Chicago. So I think that there's ways, once we get to the point where the curve is actually not just flattening as we are right now, but we see the number of cases declining and all the other metrics that we talked about. I do see a world where with this summer we see some professional sports, but likely without fans, at least in the first instance.
Yeah. Hey, Mayor, Lauren Cox here, and our team at WCPT, the Rewind Sports 60, we were very proud of you and happy when you told people, hey, stay at home. Right? And they were on the lakefront.
That's not quite how he said it, Mayor.
That's not how I said it.
That's not how he said it.
And it was 70 degrees.
Else at home, but okay.
And you said, listen, let me tell you something, Mayor. With all due respect, this is what I envisioned you doing. I ain't envisioned it. You did it. This is what you did. Mayor, you took off your mayor hat. You put the mayor hat over here, and you put on your mama hat. You put on your mama hat, and you say, hey, y'all, with all due respect, Mayor, you said, hey, y'all get y'all asses in the house. I ain't gonna tell you no more.
Hashtag we are not playing. Hashtag we are not playing. And that's a real hashtag that they have. We are not playing. I love it. So Chicago.
Man, that was classic. You shook some people up with that one.
I saw one tweet that I thought was very, very funny. I thought there's a lot of them are funny, but one in particular where they said, Mayor Lightfoot is that mom who turned the car around. And as my daughter was asked, I am that mom. I'm not playing.
Let me tell you something. I think, you know, the black folks, we know that you got that in you. Black women, that's how, hey, Big Mama, the whole nine yards. My mother, let me tell you something. My mom, you got out of line, she'd beat you like a drum. And if you got out of line down the street, your friend's mama beat you like a drum and then send you home, and then your mama beat you like a drum. So we know it. But I think some of the other folks in Chicago is kind of like, hey, wait a minute. Hey, I've never seen this side of Lori before. Hey, whoa, take it easy now. Hey, Mayor, before we let you go, I got to ask you, one of the biggest stories in Chicago, the news of the day, and it's unfortunate, and it literally nearly brought tears to my eyes to see the video, and I'm sure you've seen it and heard about it, but...
Yes.
The party on the west side, I watched it. Credit to WGN Channel 9. They have 20 minutes of footage of this video that was sent and is circulating. But it nearly brought me to tears to see these west side young people partying the way that they were partying after you've clearly stated, and the governor clearly stated, stay at home, and they were at somebody's home. But for them to be partying the way that they were partying, irresponsible, some of them had masks on, but the carousing and everything that was going on, it was just a big disappointment. What are your feelings?
Well, I'll keep it clean, but it's just stupid. They're putting their lives at risk for a momentary pleasure. And look, I get you're young, maybe don't have impulse control, but this is just stupid. And so we're actively investigating that. I've been in contact with the police department, also our business affairs department. We're going to find out, not just there were other parties over the course of the weekend. This is not going to be a thing that we're going to tolerate. I've been very, very clear about it. Unclear if this was a private home or an Airbnb. God help them if it was an Airbnb, because that's going to be the last of them. Mm-hmm. But we can't have this in our city. We have made substantial progress in flattening the curve of this virus, meaning really starting to see the number of cases doubling. We started out at 2 to 3 days. We're now at 16 days and climbing. That is great progress. But we've only been able to do that is because the vast majority of people in the city have paid attention, have been diligent, and have stayed at home. And we are not going to start the weekends of warm weather with people, as my mother would say, acting a fool out in somebody's house, out on the street. We're not going to have that. So there's going to be accountability. I can assure you of that.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate that, and thank you. And I hope that all of Chicago are listening to this, and it certainly will replay on our Facebook page, all our social media platforms. We really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us on the program to talk sports. I love your sports knowledge, and, let's hope we can see some sports in this beautiful city of ours, and keep up the great work. And I'm sure Lauren echoes this.
Yes, you have to come back. When our beloved sports are back on, we have to have you back, Mayor Lightfoot. It's been wonderful to see how you move, and it's giving me personally a lot of comfort when I haven't always felt like that, being born and raised on the South Side from other administrations. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Stay safe. Continue to put your hammer down. Hashtag we are not playing. Hashtag stay at home. And thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Hey, real quick, and I enjoy your insight regarding the Bears. We're going to have Cole Kmet. He is the new tight end of your Chicago Bears joining us. What would you like to say to him, welcoming him to the city and the Chicago Bears?
Well, I welcome and get ready. There's a lot of expectations on that young man. I hope he's able to break through and catch on with the team. But that tight end spot is a critical part of Nagy's offense. And what I've read about him, I don't remember seeing much of him because, I'm a Michigan fan, so Notre Dame's not my thing. But, I hope he embraces this opportunity with gusto and wish him much success.
Mayor, thank you so very much. We wish you continued success. I know you've got a battle on your hands, and you got some supporters here who are willing to help out any way we possibly can. And, hey, no one said it was an easy job, but I think you're handling it very, very well. And as they say, we'll all get through this together. So keep up the great work. We love what you're doing, and you represent the city by far.
You're shining.
Yeah, you're shining. There's no question about it.
In the midst of this, you are shining.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, have fun and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mayor. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.